be able to recognize anything as far as hazards associated with their job that they may need changing, and things that they can control within their job as well, seating positions, things they're reaching for, how they're sitting, and also take action to report any problems that they're having. The biggest thing is to start getting somebody aware if you're having problems. That way things can be rectified before things get out of control. And so far here, everyone's been very easy to work with. I've done 10, 12 assessments, and just having somebody say, I'm not comfortable, can somebody take a look at this? That's easy. And so we can make some really simple changes really quick and help people out if they're having some problems. So that standard definition of ergonomics is right there. What we look for is the science of how people work, what they're doing and how they fit within their tasks, their capabilities, their limitations, and what their job is required of them. And so you have to look at work tasks, the tools they use, the environment they work in, all that plays an effect of how well and what you're doing. When we are looking at it, we have to see what can we adapt to change. Can we adapt how you're working? Can we adapt what you're working with to improve your function, to reduce stress and strain to any muscular tissue, to just try to reduce the amount of repetitiveness that you're doing with your activities. There are some signs and symptoms of typical musculoskeletal injuries. They can be pain and numbness, they can be stiffness, they can be swelling, you can have joint pain, burning. Typical syndromes can be something like carpal tunnel or tennis elbow, a tendonitis, back injuries, strains, sprains, anything like that can be associated with that. Reduced strength that you feel in your hands, even reduced strength you feel legs if you're sitting too long. If you experience any of those symptoms, it may have to do with how you're sitting or how you're working. So they all can be addressed. The best way to reduce any symptom like that is to help with redesign and to get some suggestions on maybe there's something going on at my seat or with the work I'm doing that's causing some of my problems, and it's always just best to take a look. Okay, this is kind of lengthy, but here are some just kind of facts on sitting. A lot of us sit for our jobs every day. Some of us sit up to 13 hours a day. So you're sitting at work for 8 hours, you sit on your commute for half hour both ways, you sit when you're eating, you sit here, you sit here. So up to 13 hours a day you sit and sitting. So sitting can be uncomfortable, and it can just lead to decreased production with work, decreased focus with work, and then it goes down from there. It's kind of crazy, some of these stats that are listed, this is from juststand.org. You guys can peruse that website. They're doing a lot of research on sitting, how it affects people when they're sitting. But sitting is cited as one of the risk factors in the top 4 killers: heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and some cancers. Some doctors are actually trying to make sitting classified as a disease because of all it tends to have combined into the risk factors of some of these other diseases. Even if you're physically active, even if no matter how much you're active after work, you are still at risk when you're sitting at work. It says 30 minutes at the gym may not counteract your normal daily sitting activities. Okay, but then they do cite that if every 2 hours sitting, you decrease your blood flow, you increase blood sugars, your good cholesterol is dropping, just your normal metabolic systems that are going on in your body start to decrease. That's just simple sitting. That's not even harmful activities. That's just sitting. It's your daily activities. And then this was the one that I always think about. If you sit for most of your day, you have a heart attack risk just the same as a smoker. Okay, so not even if you smoke on top of that, of course, then your risk goes up. But just that simple step, just from sitting with your daily activities. So there you go. Ding ding. Yeah. So then we look at what do you do? What can you do? And a standing desk is a great idea. But there are alternate means to standing throughout your day. Just simple changes. Be physically active if you can, either throughout your day, because sometimes instead of sending emails or instead of phoning somebody who's across the hall, walk to them, talk to them, go have a face-to-face conversation. It just gets you up. You can stand when you're snacking, stand at lunch. A lot of people have breaks built into their schedule, but a lot of people that I have assessed before, their break is sitting. So they go from one sitting position in front of the computer, and they take their break in the break room, and they go sit again. So we try to think of taking active breaks. Instead of going from your sitting position at work, you change and do a lap, or stand. Just stand. Because standing just helps with blood flow. It helps with using other muscles that have been non-active as you've been sitting, and it just breaks up your day a little bit. I have people set timers. for every 30 minutes or less than that to get up, just to stand. You don't have to stand for long. Just take a break from what you're doing, 10 seconds, stand, turn around in a circle, and then sit back down. Just do something to get away from sitting. And then if you can sit 3 hours less a day from those previous steps, you can add 2 years of life expectancy onto your life. So they're not even talking about being significantly active. They're just talking about getting up and just moving a little bit. Okay, so when we look from a desk standpoint, these are what we consider the ergonomic risk factors that we're looking for if we're looking at somebody's position or work or whatnot. Our awkward postures is always the biggest one. You know, you're working with your shoulders slumped, your head's forward, you're sitting here, slunched forward, or the work you do is really low or high. Anything like that can lead to some stress and strain. Prolonged positions, if you're sitting for prolonged periods of time, if you're constantly keying all day long, if you're head tilting on the phone all day long, those postures we look for. Repetition, doing more than 2 hours of keying, mousing, precise hand work. Forceful exertion is something more for the larger items that you're doing. If you're having to do a lot of lifting, a lot of pushing and pulling, anything like that. Contact stress would be any point of your body that's either touching a desk, a chair, or being placed or rubbed or leaned on. And then your environment, which is how cold it is there. If you have to deal with lighting issues, anything like that. The one thing, these are considered occupational factors. There are non-occupational factors, some things that I can't do anything about, which is a person's physical conditioning, so how well they're just in shape, their medical conditioning, whatever things they have going on in their life. Age is always another factor, their stress level is another factor. And the biggest thing that I can't change, which I get a lot of slack for when I go see people, is their own personal behaviors. I'm asking you to change something and nobody likes change. It is really, really hard, and people fight back a lot with that.
One in the room.
So we can always give you ideas of what may better your situation or your position, but I can't always make you do it. So the personal responsibility behind all this is kind of something that has to be left up to if people are willing to do it or not. So I make all kinds of changes when I go to people's desks. And I tell them 2 weeks. 2 weeks you need to try. If you change something, you need to try it for at least 2 weeks. You can't try it a day and then say, it didn't feel really good. The first day is always going to be hard. The first week is typically hard. But usually after a 2-week period of time with a change, you're adapting to it a little bit better. You should notice some changes with whatever problem you're having. And then we can see if it's worthy or not. Sometimes things don't work. And that's normal. But we always have to try the simple changes first before we can address something larger. Alright, when it comes to ergonomics, the big buzz is neutral body positioning. Try to be as in line all your joints when you're sitting as you can. So your wrists are kept at a straight angle, your arms are down and your elbows are in. You're avoiding bending, you're avoiding twisting in your chair. Your neck is in a slight bend, but you're not looking down. You're not turning sideways to monitors. You're using your chair. You're actually sitting in your chair. A lot of people perch sit on the fronts of their chair, and they sit there for a long period of time. Well, when your muscles don't get support and a rest break, then that can lead to some back pain, neck pain, anything like that. So we'd like you to sit in your chair all the way towards the back, so that way you can have a nice, comfortable position. You can give muscles a rest. That's what your chair is there for, to not have to make you work so hard. All right, so when it comes to workstations, when I go in, we look for, when working off of that neutral spine idea, these are the things we have to keep in mind. Where you're all positioned. Is your head and neck straight? Are you turning? Is your trunk straight? When we change one, everything else changes though. So we have to be really careful on how many changes you make, because we have to get you in line with your work first from a hand standpoint and from the elbow standpoint, and then we can raise monitors. That's easy fix. We can give you a stool under your feet if we had to raise your chair. That's another easy fix. But we have to get your trunk in the right position, and then we can adjust everything else around it. We always try to position your work and not you so much. So if we can bring things closer to you so you're not reaching, if we can move the desks around, so instead of working on the small portion, you're working on the larger part of the L-shaped desk. We want to position everything around you so that way there's less stress on how you have to work. Your body, again, should be fully supported with that chair. And then somebody said a standing workstation. They're great. If we could alternate between a sitting station and a standing station, that would be ideal. If you just have work that you can leave for, the next half hour so you can stand and do some work, and then you can sit back down, standing workstations are always really great. Seating, I get a lot of questions about chairs. I get a lot of complaints about chairs. People always say their chairs are uncomfortable. Usually they're just not adjusted correctly. There's a lot of chair adjustments that can be made that can make you feel better. And I would probably say 80% of the time somebody's not sitting correctly in their seat. So I seldom ask for new chairs unless it's one of the really old, no arms, no back support things. But typically everyone has a pretty good chair that has a lot of adjustments. And so the chair should support your body and trunk. You should have enough room underneath your desk to pull up to be as close to your work as possible so you're not reaching. Your primary, they talk in primary work zones. So when you're doing things like keying, mousing, it should be in somewhere between a 6 to 14-inch reach, which would be about an elbows bent position to fingertips. So you shouldn't have to reach anything beyond here for keyboard mouse. Things like the phone, pens and papers if you're mostly computer, or arm's distance away, as well as your monitor should be about an arm's distance away from you. And then things outside of that, they prefer you not to work through. So if there's books that you're not working on a lot, or if there's things that you're keeping out, then they're beyond arm's distance away. The phone, if a lot of people are doing phones without headset, phone should be kept on your non-dominant side. So that way, as you're writing, you can hold phone with your non-dominant hand, you can be able to write with your dominant hand on whatever paper or whatnot. If not, what happens is that you grab phone with your dominant hand, and it's here as you're trying to write anything down. So non-dominant side phone, and then dominant side for your handwriting and anything you have to write notes-wise. The big thing with chair, what we try to see is that both the height is adjustable from a back standpoint, and even the seat pan is adjustable back and forth. Because everybody's size and shape differently, and so having those two adjustments are probably the most important to get you to be able to sit all the way back in your chair against the backrest and then fully support it from a leg standpoint. If you're standing, if you have the opportunity to do standing workstations, your feet should be slightly apart. If you have a footstool or something underneath you, that's a great idea because you can prop your foot, one foot, and then you can always change positions. That's why you can sit at the bar or stand at the bar for a long period of time because they always have that nice little prop there. You get really comfortable, take stress off your spine, and you can stand there for a long period of time, and then you just switch. Okay, so standing stations are really great.
So work at the bar.
There you go.
We don't have a bar.
Did you hear that, Kenneth? And then armrests. Armrests are, doesn't matter. If you like them, you can use them. If you don't like them, don't use them. There's no right, there's no wrong. If you are using them, we just look for that your elbows can rest comfortably at your side without being hunched up. A lot of people don't use them because to get close to their work or just swivel in their chair, it hits their desk. So usually people just take them all the way down and don't even worry about them. So armrests are kind of a thing. If you like them, you can. They're not a requirement. Okay, she looks great. What's wrong with her?
She's slumped over. She's half asleep.
Yeah. Okay, what else?
The monitor's too far away.
Yeah, she's too far. She needs glasses, one of the two. A lot of people work off double monitors like she is there. You want to think about your double monitors being a book, and you're sitting directly in the middle of the spine. So they're together, and you're breaking the middle. That way you can use one, you can use the other. Some people have doubles they don't use that much. They only use one part of them, and we're okay with shifting a little bit. But you want to try not to be positioned too far in front of one, too far in front of the other, or you'll be constantly head turning. But if you're in the center, you can easily eye shift. What else is wrong with her?
The back of her chair was weird.
Yeah,
It's
it's leaning back. I don't know if it's just because she's leaning too far forward, but it's really low. This nice curve of the chair here should fit where her natural curve of her spine is. And it doesn't look like it would, even if she's sitting back. So I would prefer to have her raise that up a little bit. So that way she gets a little bit more support. The other thing are computer trays. Computer trays can be pretty tricky. because like a lot of people rest on them then. And that sharp angle of her wrist puts a lot of stress on those structures at that anterior part of that wrist. So it can be a little bit painful from a wrist, even shoulder, elbow standpoint as well. The other thing about trays, like she could move that tray in to get closer to whatever she's looking at, but she doesn't. And that's what a lot of people don't do. They never move a tray. It's there, it's in front of them, and that's where it stays. If they're doing work on their desk, they're just leaning over the tray, it never gets pushed off of their legs. So a lot of people have it really low, so it's rubbing on the tops of their legs, and that's not good for you either. So trays can be a little bit tricky for positioning. If people have trays, I always ask them, how often are you moving it? Do you get it out of your way? Do you maybe put your computer tray or keyboard on the desktop? Do you work off the desktop at all? So even alternating things like that when you have a tray is a good thing to think about. All right. Okay. So let's think about some ways you can improve your workspace in your situation. Variations in tasks. Don't spend 4 straight hours keying if you can. Don't spend, don't have the death grip on your mouse and be moving it around a whole lot. If you can, like I said, get up and talk to people instead of sending emails. If you can provide an adjustable situation where you can go stand at a countertop and do some of your work, or you can come back to your seat after that, try some of that. A lot of the other things I see is that people are crowded with their workspace, and so they're trying to do a lot in a little bitty space, and they don't have enough room to move because keyboard's there and mouse is there and all that's there. So even clearing off some space, that way you have a little bit more room to work. There's a lot of substitute keystrokes you can use for mousing tasks. Control V, Control C for copying and pasting, Control X for cutting. That can give you shortcuts so you're not always mousing so much. And so that way you don't have to worry about that hand. Have several short rest breaks to get up, to stand, to stretch, to move around. That way you can provide alternate non-computer working as you're going. Stretching. You guys all have a small stretching handout. And that's typically what we give for workplace situations. People who do a lot of work keying or sitting at the computer or just in general with desk work. Stretching benefits are really great. It helps reduce tension, increase relaxation. It can increase your range of motion, especially if you're doing a lot of hard key work and that gets pretty stressful on the hands and shoulders. There's some easy stretches to be done there. Promote circulation. So all those things that it's trying to increase are the things that sitting tends to decrease. So all we're doing is trying to get you moving, get blood flow, decrease the stiffness, decrease the soreness, and try to get you doing some other activities besides just normal work. How to stretch. Relax and don't bounce. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't watch how other people do it. I think you should be doing what they're doing. Everybody's different, and so everybody is going to look a little bit different as they stretch. You should hold for at least 10 seconds, up to 30 seconds or beyond if you have the time. You want to hold in a comfortable position that's non-painful. Your stretch should relax a little bit as you get into the 10 to 15 second range, and you may be able to take it through more range of motion beyond that, and that's perfectly fine. You want to try not to hold your breath as you're stretching, and allow just that gradual release of tension as you go through stretch. And so I think there's 8 stretches on there. Hands and shoulders, the first page, and a little bit of the upper back and neck on the next page.